Welcome, students, to today's live IELTS class. I'm Adrian, and I am broadcasting to you from Central Europe, Hungary, the capital city of Budapest, separated by the beautiful Danube River into its two sides. I hope everybody who's watching is doing great, and you're focused and ready to get going. As usual, our websites have these materials that we use in these classes. For academic IELTS, check us out at aehelp.com, where you can join our full course. You can try our course for free. If you like it, definitely join the full course. Lots of strategies there for you to get high bands on IELTS. There's reading, writing, speaking, listening help available there for you. And if you're studying for general IELTS, check us out at IELTShelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. Of course, make sure you know which version of the IELTS you need. It's very important. Today we're looking at IELTS speaking part 2 and 3. We discussed pronunciation in yesterday's class, and we took a speaking part 1 example, kind of a fun one for that. If you go to your Play Store, your iTunes Store, you can find our app there. It's the Academic IELTS Help app. We are working on the general version also. We'll have that ready for you soon. Hi, everyone. Hi, Shuksing. Hi, Kashif. Hi, Gim. Hi, Hafsa. Hi, Canadian Vlogger. Hi, everyone who's joining in right now. We have a new high-definition video on our channel here for you. As well as on our general IELTS channel. It's IELTS Speaking Part 1, how to get high scores with some example interview questions and answers throughout the lesson. So check that out. Most people are really enjoying that and finding it useful. And again, if you want to get all of our videos, join our premium full course. You can also get our exam books from Amazon. If you go to Amazon and search for AE Helps Academic IELTS, you'll find our 2 academic IELTS textbooks. If you search for GE Helps General IELTS, you'll find our General IELTS textbooks. Good to see some members joining in. Hi, Naveen. Hope you're doing great. I am noticing a lot of comments are saying that students have their exams coming up very soon in the next week or 10 days. So good luck to those students who are doing your exams. I've got a prayer thrown out to Kayam Akhmedov. So I'm hoping that you'll do well. If anybody has questions about our products or about IELTS, don't be shy. Send us an email. You can send the email to my name, adrian@aehelp.com. Pallav, yes, there is an app available in your app store. The app is a little bit different from our websites, but it's useful, and we're always improving and upgrading that as well. Okay. The live stream schedule is according to Central European time. We just got started. It is just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. So usually the streaming schedule is 15 to 16 o'clock Central European time. You can check out the time zone difference by typing in Central European time now into Google, and you'll see the difference in hours. Today, speaking part 2 and 3. Tomorrow, some task 2 writing strategy. And then on Saturday, we have a members chat class. So we have quite a few members now. If you're watching, members, make sure to make some requests. So if you have some questions or you want me to go over a part of IELTS specifically, some strategy, let me know. Send me an email and I'll set up a class for that, okay? Members get access to our exam books, they get to request classes, and they get access to our video archives on the channel, some exclusive private videos. So those are the perks. All right, no classes on the 28th, 29th, 30th. Let's get going with part 2, speaking. Part 2, speaking, of course, comes after part 1. Because we are practicing or continuing practicing speaking today, make sure you repeat after me, okay? So wherever you are, hopefully you're in a place where you can speak nice and loud, such as in your bedroom or in an office or a living room, maybe in a study area in the library where you can use your voice. Repeat after me, okay? When you write your comments and I correct them and I say them back to you, again, make sure you repeat them, even if they're not yours, even if they're somebody else's, okay? So IELTS speaking interview is usually a day before, a day after, and sometimes on the same day as the actual sit-down part of the IELTS exam. It takes about roughly 12 minutes for the speaking interview. Stay relaxed, stay focused. When you walk into the examiner's room, so into the interview room, what should you do? What should you imagine? What should you visualize? This is kind of a review, a refresher for students that watch these classes regularly. I haven't said this in a long time, so I think it's important to say that. I see somebody's asking, how can you be a member of the channel? You should see a join button beside the subscribe button. If you don't see it there, it could be because you're using Apple or something, or it might not be available in your area, but you should see a join beside the subscribe button. Okay, so what's the first thing? You walk into the interview room to do your speaking. You take a deep breath, stay relaxed, you visualize, you picture what? What do you picture about the examiner? Tell me, what is a very good kind of visual, mental trick to help you be confident, help you be relaxed? So how can you do that? Niharika, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Our website, the app, joining the channel. All right, well, while you're thinking about that, I'll let you know. Don't think about the person, Jignesh, as your friend. That's actually not a good way to think about it, Jignesh. A much better way to think about the interviewer is like your grandfather or your grandmother, okay? Not your friend. The reason why is because, yeah, Naveen, there you go. Grandpa sitting alone with a table in front of him. That's right. You should think about it as your grandfather or your grandmother. There's a very important reason for that. When you talk to your friend, you speak too casually. Speaking too casually is not good in the speaking. You need to speak in nice, full, clear, loud sentences. When you speak to grandpa or grandma, you're usually using a nice, loud, clear voice, hopefully. Otherwise, grandma, grandpa might be going, "What did you say there, Sonny Jim? I have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, I can't even hear you, and my left ear is half deaf." So you speak nice and loud. Also, you're respectful when you speak to grandpa, grandma. That's very important, using respectful language. And you realize that grandma and grandpa are not the same generation as you. So if you start talking about Facebook and Twitter and tweeting and throwing something up on Instagram, grandpa and grandpa might kind of look at you and go, "What did you say there, sonny boy? Are you learning another language? Are you speaking Mandarin or Swahili?" You realize that you have to go into clear details and examples so that grandma, grandpa can clearly understand what you're saying, okay? All right. So you imagine that you're talking to grandma, grandpa. The examiner will ask for your ID. Make sure you don't forget that. And then you sit down. You go over some general questions. Do you work? Do you study? And then some easier questions to start off part one. And then after you're done that, the examiner will say, okay, that is the end of part one. Now we will continue with part two. For part two, I'm going to give you a card with some questions on it. You will have 1 minute to prepare your thoughts, read the questions, take some notes if you wish. Here's some note paper and a pencil. And then you will have 2 minutes to speak. I will tell you when to start and when to stop. Are you ready to begin? And then you should say, yes, absolutely, I'm ready. Okay, your 1 minute preparation time begins now. So you turn over the card, and this is what you see, okay? So you see these questions. Describe a good rule in your home. What is the rule? Why did you or someone in your home make this rule? How does it affect life at home? What is your opinion about it, okay? So describe a good rule in your home. All right, what should you do first? So you see this question, what's your number one, your first step right away to give yourself the best chance to prepare an effective, powerful Band 8, Band 9 answer? So Naveen says, well, try to visualize it. Which is great, absolutely. So try to picture, okay, what kind of rules are there. The W questions are okay, Saeed, as well, but make sure you think about them in a logical order. That's not the most logical order that you have. Aditya says some critical thinking absolutely will be good. Take some notes, Shanu. Absolutely, you should take some notes. 2-word, 3-word notes. Before you even do all that, so your thinking is okay, but before you do your critical thinking, before you visualize, before you picture your answer, what do you need to do? So what do you need to do? Oh, Igorov, I'm not sure what you mean, but is idea matter? Doesn't make sense to me. All right, you have to remember that part 2 in your speaking will either be a place, an object, so a person, place, object, or event, okay? This is most likely, it's going to be one of these 4 main categories. Now, each one of these has a special way of answering so that you get a high band and you do it effectively, and it's good communication. When you're talking about a person, we can talk about what they look like, their personality, and their actions. And their personality and their actions are connected. My father is a tall man with dark hair, always has a smile on his face. He's a very kind person. Every weekend he goes to the downtown area and gives food to homeless people. Okay, so it's appearance, personality, action. So place, also similar object or event. The first point, the first important step to take when you flip that card and you read the questions is figure out, am I talking about a person, place, object, or event? And as soon as you figure that out, you need to think about, all right, how do I talk about this type of information effectively? Okay? So, what is this? Are we talking about a place, an object, an event, or a person in this case? Okay, so I flipped over the card. What am I talking about? Said, I'm definitely not talking about an object because a rule is not an object. So it's not something I can hold, right? Naveen says, I think it might be an event. Aditya says it's a person. A rule is not a person. The topic here is a rule, okay? So it's some kind of a rule or regulation in your home. It's not a person. It's not an object. It's not a place, okay? The topic is the rule, and the controlling idea is in your home. It's an event, okay? So you're talking about an event, and this is a reoccurring event. Okay, so an event that happens again and again. Give you an example here. A rule might be if you take a cup from the shelf and you use it to have a drink, please wash it and put it in the dryer. That's a rule in our home. Otherwise, there's way too many cups being used, and one person gets frustrated because they have to wash 20 different glasses or mugs or put them into the dishwasher. So here, this is a reoccurring event. So it's an event that happens again and again. Every time you take that cup off the shelf and you take a drink and you make it dirty, you need to wash it. It's a reoccurring event. Okay, so when you're talking about an event, what do you need to say about an event? So whether you're talking about a birthday, whether you're talking about a wedding, whether you're talking about an accident that happened to you when you're 10 years old or an injury, you need to discuss these important points to clearly talk about an event like this one. So what is the event? How do we describe this event or this action? Okay, another way that you can think about it, if it makes a little bit more sense for you, there is an event is a type of action. Okay, it's a detailed action. All right. So when I talk about an event, what do I need to talk about? Let's see if you're telling me the answer I'm looking for. Aditya, that's not true. That nearly. So Aditya says, but almost all the questions are related to a person. No, actually, it's not true. If you look at all of the IELTS exams that are done in a year, it's about 25% for each. 25% person, 25% place, 25% object, 25% event. That's why it's really important to practice for all four of these. Saeed says the 5 W's and how. Yeah, we can get into that, Saeed, but that's a little bit later on. That's not going to be good enough to give you a powerful answer for those really high bands, okay? The W's are really good, what, why, how, and so on, but it's not the best yet, okay? So for an event, you want to talk about what is the event, right? When it takes place, who is there, what do people do, what is the purpose? All right? So that's a little bit more specific than just thinking about it as what, why, how. Because if you think just what, why, how, it's not necessarily detailed enough. This gives you more detail to work with, okay? Now, when you practice this at home, this is happening very quickly, okay? So when you turn over the card and the card says, describe a good rule in your home, what is the rule? Why did you or someone in your home make this rule? So right away, you have that piece of paper in front of you. You don't need to write this down. You should right away think, aha, okay, this is an event. I have to talk about what is the event? When does it happen? Who's there? Who does it affect? Why is this event important? And what is my take or what is my belief about this event? So if you think about these steps here and you answer those, you realize that you're actually answering the questions as well. Okay? So once you've answered the logical details of an event, as long as you've identified clearly that it's an event, you will be answering the questions here as well. Now, of course, check the card, make sure that you didn't miss a point, but you should do quite well, okay? All right. So what's your next step? So you realized, okay, flip over the card, you realize this is an event. I got to talk about what the event is, when it happens. The event here specifically is a rule in your home, okay? So it's a certain regulation, it's a certain chore or activity that must be done, a mandate, all right? What do I do next? Dottie, I'm not sure if you're lost or what the double question marks are, but we're talking about speaking part 2 strategies in the IELTS and how to get a good score for speaking part 2. So I'm taking you through the steps of what you need to do in that 1 minute to be confident and answer effectively, okay? Too many students just say the same idea again and again, forget to go into details, and many students actually go off topic and answer the wrong questions. So Preeti Sina says, make some notes. So take down some notes. Before you take some notes, Faruza says, create your first sentence. That's very clever, Faruza. You will need to do that, but not just yet. Okay? Before you do that, what are we talking about? Hi, Shiji. What are we talking about here? So what is the rule? Hi, Eugen. So what would 9 from 10 people answer? Okay, that's your next question, all right? Always choose the easy path, okay? Okay, so choose the easy path. Choose the easy way to answer the question. You can do that by thinking, if I ask 10 people, what is a common rule in the house that people follow, or that parents make up, or that roommates make up, then you can think of a couple very quickly, and then you can choose one. You can go, aha, that's what I'm going to talk about, and that will be very effective. So Saeed says, be respectful. That's not really a rule, Saeed. That's an attitude. I don't think 9 out of 10 people would say that there's a rule in the house to be respectful. It's kind of strange and it'd probably be difficult to talk about. Think about an actual specific rule. Okay, so Jignesh says washing utensils or washing the plates. Might be, yeah, so washing dishes. Sitting for supper together. Yeah, that would be good. Must be home before 10. Cleaning your room. Jeffrey says flush after use. That might be a little bit tricky to talk about because you might get a little bit flustered talking about flushing after using. So I might avoid that. Eating at the table, Aditya. Eating at the table. So there's some good ones there. Okay. So Saeed also says curfew. So there's some good ones. Let's take some notes on that. So curfew. Be home at 10. Curfew means there's a time to be home. Okay, I think that's a very good one. I didn't think about that one, but that's a good one. Wash dishes after use. Sure, that's a good one as well. I think that would be a fairly good one to talk about. Take shoes off at door. Might be a common one also. All right. Washing your hands and feet when you go in the house. Yep, absolutely. In some parts of the world, feet as well, I'm sure. Yep. And here's a good one. I don't know if any of you thought about this one. So eating together is okay as well. I think that would work very well. And here's another one I'll throw out at you. You could say this one, no loud music or sound after 10. Okay, so definitely in some families or if there are some roommates, you might make a rule that there's no loud music or sound after 10. So you respect that some people are trying to sleep or study and there's a quiet time. Okay, so quiet time might be another very popular one. All right. So that's some great brainstorming, ladies and gents. Good job. Pat yourself on the back. So now, of course, you need to say, okay, I don't want to get carried away or confused. I want to pick one that's easy. So you think, okay, curfew, be home before a certain time, washing dishes, taking off shoes at the door, eating together, no loud music or sound after 10. There's a quiet time. Which of these do you think would be the easiest to talk about for 2 minutes? Yeah, that's right, Canadian vlogger. You definitely want to pick one at this point. A wake-up time is maybe one as well, Jay. But which one or two of these do you think is the easiest to talk about for 2 minutes? Okay, you have to talk about it for 2 minutes. I think washing dishes and taking shoes off at the door, you might run out of ideas very quickly. I think eating together, quiet time, and curfew would probably be the ones that you can talk about the easiest for 2 minutes. Keep in mind that you are talking for 2 minutes here, right? So I think these ones that I'm underlining are probably the easiest ones to talk about for 2 minutes, okay? Because there's a lot of information around it that we can say. So I'll go with one that a couple of you said, which is the curfew, being home at a certain time, okay? So you pick that one, and then you go and look at these questions, okay? All right, and then we start answering. So last but not least, and you should do this in your 1 minute preparation time, and one student said this a little bit earlier, is come up with that first sentence, okay? So think of your first sentence in the 1 minute prep time, okay? Here we'll have an example. It's very important because there's too many students that waste the first 15 or 20 seconds of the 2 minutes either not saying much or saying information that's completely useless, okay? Some students will begin answering this question by saying, no, don't talk about several rules, Sami. Don't talk about, the question is asking you describe a rule. So this is our questions here. Describe a good rule in your home, okay? Means one. If you start talking about 3, 4 rules, your band score will go down. The question's not asking you for that. Be very careful, okay? Answer the question specifically. It's one rule, okay? It's a good rule in your home. So have that first sentence ready. A lot of students will begin by saying, well, in my home, there are a lot of rules that my parents have established since I was a child. These rules are good and bad, and they change throughout the years. I would like to talk about one of these rules now. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're not going to get the best band score with that kind of response, okay? You've just used 20 seconds talking about rules in general, and the question's not asking you for that. You're wasting my time, and you're off topic. So start with your first direct sentence answering the question, okay? So what would be my first sentence here? So what is the first sentence that I can go with here? Okay, so again, we're going with curfew. So curfew means a time that everybody has to be home. Now, if you're living in a dormitory, you might have that as well. If you've got roommates, you're renting a house, it might not be the same. You might go with a different answer, but let's just stick with this one for now. Mercy, no. Don't start by saying there are many rules, but this one's a good one. I don't care about the other many rules. I just care about the one rule. So, Palav, same thing. Don't tell me about many rules. I don't care about many rules. I just care about one for this question, okay? Naveen, that's good. So Naveen says, well, one important rule in my home is I need to get home before 10 p.m., okay? Or Jeffrey says, all of my family members are subject to a curfew. My brothers and my sisters and I have to be at home no later than 10 p.m. That's a good way to start, okay? So here we go. That should be your starting sentence, okay? So my siblings and I, a good rule in my home is go, okay? Now I heard the camera click off. No worries, ladies and gents. I'll get you back on screen here in just 2 seconds. It's I think it's a part of the software that can't be changed to protect the camera here. So just give me a moment. All right. So there's your first sentence. So now you start to think about those questions, right, of how to answer when you're talking about an event. So again, keep in mind, you're discussing an event, so you have to talk about what it is, why, who it affects, and so on and so forth, okay? So what should I say next? Okay. So here we're getting into our response now. So a good rule in my home is a 10 o'clock curfew that my siblings and me must adhere to. All right? What should I say next? What would be another sentence to follow this up with? Okay, so I can see you've got your first sentences. Think about follow-up questions, right? Why? When? So again, remember here, what is the event? It's a 10 o'clock curfew. When does it take place? Well, at 10 o'clock, obviously at nighttime. But another when would be is since when has this taken place? Okay? So think about that. That would be my next sentence. Tainder, again, not a good way to start. Different people have different rules in their homes. I don't care about different people in different homes. I care about you and one good rule, and that's what I want you to talk about, okay? Don't go off topic. Jay, again, same thing. One of the most important rules that today I'd like to talk about. I know you're going to talk about it today because you're sitting in front of me, so don't waste time with precious time with irrelevant words that are understood, okay? So since when? Since when do you have this 10 o'clock curfew? If I'm sitting there, right, and I'm thinking of the when questions, then I would think about since when do you have this rule? So Naveen says, my father implemented this rule after he saw a horrible accident at midnight a few years back. Sure, okay, that's one way to say it. This rule was implemented 5 years back when my sister returned late from a party. Very good, Mercy Phillip. Now you're rolling. Excellent, girls and guys. Since we were pupils, our parents set the rules, so we don't have much after-school activities. Okay, sure. So lots of ways you can answer this, but as soon as each one of us became a teenager, turned the age of 13, my parents implemented this rule to keep us safe, right? Okay. Great. And those answers that you gave me, so I'm just giving my own, but Mercy Phillip, Jeffrey, Naveen, those are some great answers, okay? Again, don't forget your quantitative language. So it's really good to use language that we can measure specifically, like since the age of 13, since I became a teenager, since my brothers became a teenager. Before that time, of course, my parents would not let any of us out late without adult supervision. Okay? All right, excellent. So you're going along. You've answered the question of what the rule is, when the rule takes place. Okay. Keep thinking about those questions, right? So think about the logic. Again, you want to practice these at home because once you do it, then you can be much faster in the actual IELTS. So what the event is, when it takes place, who's there, what are the actions, okay? So who is involved? Currently, the curfew, this curfew affects me and my two older brothers. My sister is still just 10, so she cannot be out late on her own. Okay, sure, good. So I just kind of threw that out there. I think most of you can come up with who it affects. A little bit of redundancy. We've already said our siblings, but we're going into more details, which is great. Now, what are the actions? So let's be more specific here. What are the actions? So you can say, okay, well, the action here is the curfew. You have to be home at 10 o'clock. But what do you mean? Try to be more specific. So what does it mean that you have to be home at 10 o'clock? And what are the consequences in case you're not? Okay, so try to answer that for me. So again, when you're thinking actions, think details, visualize, right? What is the 10 o'clock curfew that I have to be at home? I have to be through the front gate. I have to be sitting in the living room. I have to be in my bedroom. I have to be changed into my pajamas. So what does that actually mean? And if I don't, if I break that rule, ooh, what happens? Okay. So Aditya says, the rule was implemented 20 years back when my parents heard all the bad news related to late night crime in my city. Yeah, you could say that as well. Okay. Now, of course, you might be realizing at this point that it's kind of weird because I'm like 17, 18, 19 years old when I'm sitting the IELTS. So am I going to get a bad mark if the examiner thinks that this is a crazy rule that I'm just making up because 19, 20-year-olds don't have a 10 o'clock curfew? Not necessarily. Okay? In IELTS, you don't have to speak the truth. You can actually say a completely made up story, and you can include even that as long as you and your siblings are living under the same roof as your parents, this curfew is very strict. It doesn't matter how old you are. So you can fix that kind of strangeness, but you won't lose marks for that. Okay? The IELTS wants you to give a good answer to this question. As long as it's a good answer, they don't care. Okay? So, we have to be home before the bell rings 10 p.m. on our grandfather clock in the living room. Absolutely. Okay, and be ready for supper. All right, sure. Definitely. That's a good way to go about it, Naveen. Saeed says the curfew means that I have to walk in the door no later than 10 p.m. However, if I'm late, I have to pay a $5 fine for every half hour. Hours maybe not as strict, but sure. Okay, you have to pay a fine. Sure, Saeed, it's kind of strange, but it makes sense. I like it, okay? So, this rule means that both my feet have to be through the front door of our house no later than 10 o'clock at night in the evening. If I'm as much as a minute late, not only do I need to pay a $5 fine into the family savings account, but I also don't get to go out late for an entire week. Okay, so here I'm showing you a little bit more. Make sure that you do use complex and compound sentences. Here I'm using a conditional. If I'm, then something happens. So if I'm as much as a minute late, and then I'm mixing it with correlative conjunctions, not only, but also. So not only do I need to pay a $5 fine into the family savings account, but I also don't get to go out late for an entire week. Okay? So using those complex compound sentences with coordinating correlative conjunctions is an excellent way to increase your IELTS band score. There we go. I thought there was something different about the studio today. Ta-da! Let there be light. All right, so that's what you do. So you're talking about the actions. Now notice that we're expanding on this quite a bit. So we have really good expansion going here now, just by following the simple logic of talking about an event. So here, all we've done so far is talked about what the event is, when it takes place or when it's from, who it's affecting, and what are the actions involved, okay? What is the purpose, okay? And what is my belief about the event? So we still have those 2 points to answer. So what is the purpose? Okay. The goal of this rule is to keep us out of trouble. My parents strongly believe that there are no good activities that we can get up to late in the night. They think the only activity, I don't want to repeat that, is drinking, smoking, and partying. that teenagers do after 10. Okay? And in some ways, they might be right. All right. So there I'm explaining the logic behind it. So I'm answering again this question, right? So I'm just going through these questions. What is the purpose? So what's the purpose of the event? If we're talking about a wedding, the purpose of the event is to show the love between two people, their union, and their commitment to each other. Here, the purpose of the event of the rule is to keep children out of trouble, to keep them safe. Okay? In addition, most crime takes place after the sun sets, so my parents have a peace of mind if we are all home safe and sound before late evening. Okay, notice the paraphrasing that I'm using there. So I'm just going along here, all right? Okay, again, you want to practice and make sure that you can say all of this in 2 minutes, that you're quick at it, okay? And at this point, you should be doing something. You should do something important. So what do you do here? Again, this is what I mentioned where a lot of students start to repeat ideas. They go and say the same sentences that they've said before. They get stuck. What can you do here? There are a couple of important steps. Okay? Yeah, Naveen, that's a good way to say it. The motto of this implementation is to keep me and my siblings away from late night activities like pubs and parties. Absolutely. All right? Mercy Phillips says the aim of this is to make us disciplined and also keeps us safe from many incidents. Also, we can have our dinner together and discuss our day with each other. Mercy, that's a good one too. I like it. You have some great ideas coming up there. So Jignesh, you can conclude with an example. Absolutely. So you might think of an example here. And also, look at the card. Okay? So look at the card and make sure you didn't miss any of the questions on the card. So what is the rule? We talked about that. Why did you or someone in your house make this? We've talked about that. How does it affect life at home? We've kind of talked about that. What is your opinion about it? Okay. So we haven't talked about your opinion about it. And we haven't really talked about how it affects life at home. So this keeps this keeps the children, this rule helps to keep me and my siblings disciplined. And creates strong family bonds. Okay? As we sit together for our evening meal before bed. Okay, sure. So I liked your answer there, Mercy. That was great. Okay, good. So we include some kind of an example. We make sure that we answer those questions. All right? Excellent. Now, that's roughly 2 minutes. So let's go over this. Just make sure it makes sense. So again, the question is, describe a good rule in your home. What is the rule? Why did you or someone in your home make this rule? How does it affect life at home? What is your opinion about it? Okay, again, repeat nice and loud after me. So just repeat me. A good rule in my home is a 10 o'clock curfew that my siblings and me must adhere to. As soon as each one of us became a teenager, turned the age of 13, my parents implemented this rule to keep us safe. Before that time, of course, my parents would not let any of us out late without adult supervision. Currently, this curfew affects me and my two older brothers. My sister is still just 10, so she cannot be out late on her own. This rule means that both of my feet have to be through the front door of our house no later than 10 o'clock in the evening. If I'm as much as a minute late, not only do I need to pay a $5 fine into the family savings account, but I also don't get to go out late for an entire week. The goal of this rule is to keep us out of trouble, because my parents strongly believe that there are no good activities that we can get up to late in the night. They think the only activity is drinking, smoking, partying, and hanging out at pubs that teenagers do after 10. In addition, most of the crime takes place after the sun sets, so my parents have a peace of mind if we are all home safe and sound before late evening. This rule keeps my siblings and I disciplined and creates strong family bonds as we sit together for our evening meal before bed. Although I used to hate this rule because I would always need to go home before my friends, now I support and believe that this idea is good, and I'm happy that my brothers and sisters are safe just the same as I. Okay, so you do need to include that answer for the last question of what do you think about it. So you can say, I think I used to hate this rule when I was younger because all my friends got to hang out late, but now I think it's a good rule because I'm also concerned for the safety of my other family members. Safety and well-being of my other family members. Okay. All right, and then you're done. Okay, so good luck, Mercy. By the way, Mercy, you did some really good answering there. So as long as you could stick to that logical, critical thinking, you should do quite well on the 31st. Okay, so I think you'll do really, really well on the 31st as long as you answer the way that you've been commenting in the chat. That's great. So now you're done. So you're done with speaking part 2, and then the examiner says, okay, your 2 minutes is up. Now let's continue with part 3. Okay, before we continue with part 3, I have a couple questions that we'll look at there. But before we continue with part 3, here's a challenge for you. So for those students who are joining later, you've been watching the whole time, try to answer this question about a good rule in the home with one of these other really common house rules. So we looked at curfew. Don't use that one. But think about washing dishes, taking shoes off at the door, eating together at the dinner table, or that quiet time, so no loud noise or music after 10 or 10:30. Try to record on your phone or write down a really good response to one of those other rules, and then you can send it to me for a score estimate. Just send it to adrian@aehelp.com. If you're sending me a sound file, please send it as an MP3, okay? So send it as an MP3 file. And then I'll give you a score estimate. All right. Now, again, you're done part 2, and then you're into part 3. So here are some part 3 questions. Let's take the second set this time. So let's talk about human rights. Ooh, it's a hot topic, sensitive one. That's why I'd like to maybe get you a little bit awake and focused and get you all fired up. So here we go. They might not actually on IELTS ask you such sensitive topics, but you never know. So let's talk about human rights. Many countries and people advocate, means argue, for equal rights among all people, men, women, and children. Is it realistic for society to achieve? So the examiner asks you this question. Many countries and people advocate for equal rights among all people, men, women, and children. Is this realistic for society to achieve? So give me a nice full sentence answer to this question. Don't go blank, Aditya. Be ready. IELTS is fair, but they're not overly discreet. They might ask you some pretty serious questions in part 3. So what's your opinion here? Is it possible for society to achieve? Now here, if you're like, whoa, that's a really hard question, what should you do? Ask for time, right? That's a tough question. Please give me a moment to think. Okay? And then take 5 seconds and think. All right? So think about it. Harmeet, realistic here means can it actually happen? Jignesh says, no, it's not possible for society to achieve this. But why not, Jignesh? You need to answer the why question here. Clearly, it's very important. Okay? So in many countries, people advocate for equal rights among all people. It means everybody has the same right. So if men can drive, women can drive a car. If men can go to the pub and drink alcohol, so can women. Is it possible to have the same rights for men, women, and children? Okay? It's kind of a little detail in there that can help you with this. So Naveen says, yes, it's quite feasible to achieve equal rights among genders and ages. Celebrities do always promote the motto of quality as it reaches the audience easily by them. Yeah, we're not really interested, Naveen, in how. Is it just realistic? Pachu says, realistically, it's not achievable in developing countries like Nepal. Why, Pachu? Okay, so you want to give an answer for that. Now, you could give an answer like this. I definitely believe that in many ways it is possible, especially between genders. For instance, if men are allowed to drive, so too should women. And the same goes for voting. However, it might not be possible to have equal rights among different age groups. It would be a terrible idea to let children drink in a pub. Okay? So if you think about the question, that could work. Let's see what else you've written. So equal rights for all of us, actually, as far as I'm concerned, who do have equal rights, or at least as we do so in Europe. Even if the biggest part of women would argue this, it's much better than it was. Marius, I'm a little bit confused by what you're saying there, but I kind of get your drift. Okay, repeat after me. So this would be a feasible answer, and you don't have to get too political. I definitely believe, let's start from here. That's a tough question. And if you have a tough question, you can do this. You don't lose marks for doing this. It's better to ask for time, think of a good answer, than say something strange. So that's a tough question. Please give me a moment to think. I definitely believe that in many ways it is possible, especially between genders. For instance, if men are allowed to drive, so too should women, and the same goes for voting. However, it might not be possible to have equal rights among different age groups. It would be a terrible idea to let children drink in a pub. Okay? So Pachu says it's not possible because different political parties have different opinions and their own belief systems, and these do not represent equal rights. Good, Pachu. So there's your explanation. Excellent. All right, let's take one more. Freedom of speech. Let's look at this one. Freedom of speech is very important to many societies around the globe. What are the positives and negatives of this liberty? Liberty means freedom. Okay? So try that one. Maybe it's a little bit easier. You're going to be a little bit less shy about that one. Freedom of speech is very important to many societies around the globe. The globe means the world. What are the positives and negatives of this liberty? Okay, try that part 3 question. It's an interesting one. Again, if you need time to think, ask for it, right? Or you could say, that's an interesting question. Just give me a second to collect my thoughts. Okay, and then give your answer. All right? So freedom of speech is very important to many societies around the globe. What are the positives and negatives of this liberty? So right away here, you have to think about at least one positive and at least one negative of freedom of speech. People can say what they think. Okay? So Tainder says, well, Tainder, useful sentences, use the question, okay? So say, well, freedom of speech can be a positive because people can express their problems and challenges to others so they can work together to find solutions. For example, and that way, Tainder, Shanky, you're on the right track, okay? So use parts of the question to stretch your answer and make it more clear. Hank Pham says, well, the positive, I would say, is that it gives people a chance to express their feelings and their opinions without being worried of persecution, right? Or of being jailed. So you need to finish that, Hank Pham, and then go to the negative side, right? Naveen says, well, in many countries, the liberty is one among their constitutional rights. With this liberty, sometimes we may hurt the beliefs of others. However, the pros are that we have the freedom to express our opinion and seek help for our difficulties and challenges. Absolutely. Farhim says that's important because one can know the importance of being a citizen. I just turned the camera back on here. Just give me a second. While the government can know about the view of the people. Very clever. Okay, that's very, very smart. Absolutely. Yeah, the government can learn what the people are thinking if they're allowed to express themselves and manage society much more effectively and build a much stronger society if they understand the citizens and their needs. Okay? So Soha says the positive impact is that people can express their problems in their own language, which is much easier for everyone to understand and work together to find solutions. Sure. Okay. One of the positives for freedom of expression is that people and governments can work together effectively to build a strong and happy society. For instance, if the majority of people are not too happy about a new tax, the government can think of alternatives as long as people are not afraid to express their concern. right? So that would be with an example. Let's see what else some of you have put up. So freedom of speech is an example of democracy, which allows the people to express their opinions. However, sometimes the governments don't allow to talk against them. Yeah, you're right, Sami. So why is that negative, right? So, and that is negative. But that's not about the freedom of speech. So you're kind of going off topic there, Sami. We want to stay on topic here. All right? So, however, one negative of freely saying whatever a citizen wants is potential harm to society. For instance, some radicalists are able to convince many people of destructive ideas such as murder. Okay? So that could be radicalists. I'm not sure why it's not taking that. Anyway, so that could be a good answer there, okay? I'll take one more. By getting a lot of freedom of speech, many people take it the wrong way, and they think that they can say anything about anyone and talk out on any topic which may be hurtful to others, Tynder. That would be a good one. Okay, so again, we have another question here. How has the internet and social media influenced human rights in the 21st century? That's another question that you can tackle on your own. And then there are 3 questions here about rules and regulations. What are some important rules that are common in many countries? Some people believe that the death penalty is necessary for extreme crimes such as murders. Others disagree. What is your opinion? Why? And what new laws may people see in the future and why? So I challenge you to answer those questions on your own. Again, record them in MP3 format on your phone. You can send them to me for a score estimate. My email, adrian@aehelp.com. So you can send them there. Check out our websites, www.aehelp.com for academic IELTS, www.gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I know that was a little bit of a hot topic to finish on, but I thought I'd stir you up a little before the end of today's class. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and get a good night's rest if it's late in your country. Bye for now.